for knockdown against etiologic targets, but in the muscle. And so we're not reinventing RNAi or ASOs or exon skipping molecules, but what we did do there was take advantage of those existing technologies, which you really can take off the shelf, and then develop the novel approach to antibody delivery to the muscle. So our ability to kind of iterate and create new product classes, but using that toolkit to add more apps to the smartphone, in Telo's example, is a very real and powerful thing. And I think public investors get that, which is why there's interest in these kinds of companies.
How do you think about valuing these early stage platform companies? I mean, especially at the stage that you're investing and even forming them.
Jason, you want to have a first crack at that, or?
Sure. I mean, look, there's always a market for these companies, and there's a public market, and that trades every day, and so you know where those kinds of companies are. And as with more asset-oriented companies, we can kind of plot out the life cycle of these companies. We can talk very specifically and plan in a very concrete way for which products are coming in. So then, again, in any of these businesses where you're buying assets, you're not buying cash flows. The question is, how do you discount them back and think about them? But if you don't come in early, you may never get the chance to come in later. And again, you'd much rather buy, you name the company, Alnylam at, sub $1 billion than at a different price, albeit there's been value creation along the way and still lots of growth for companies like those. So, you do it through a dialogue with investors. You recognize the importance of syndicate composition, as I was saying before, not just valuation. And, we're long-term participants in this industry. We've been doing it since 1993 as a firm. We're far from done. And so we also, to put it in these terms, really do value and care about the relationships of those public investors. And so I think, again, if you view these as one-time events where you're trying to maximize value, maybe you pull it off in a given deal today, but it probably isn't the best thing to do for your business or for the companies in the future. And so that's those are the considerations, and that's the dialogue that you have with the public investors.
We're also seeing with a lot of these platforms some fairly intense competitive dynamics, oftentimes companies pursuing even similar orphan disease indications. How do you kind of think about that competitive landscape, your willingness to kind of jump into the fray when others are already there, and how do you get comfortable that you're betting on the fastest horse?
You want to take that one, Telo, first?
Yeah, sure. This is something we actually spent a lot of time organizationally thinking through. And again, I think Ravi coined the terms domain dominance, but I think it used to be the case that you'd be first in class in a modality, in a mechanism rather, for a year, 2 years or so, and that's no longer the case, right, Josh? So we have basically a colossal amount of competition very, very quickly as the mechanism gets elucidated and is being important. And obviously everybody knows the Opdivo Keytruda story and so on. But so I think organizationally that is a challenge, and I think we have been thinking about it for a while. I would say over probably 5-10 years now. I have to say one component which is absolutely essential. Obviously, we can all learn, hopefully, to differentiate molecules on the basis, whatever, receptor occupancy, all this stuff. And by the way, your research reports are part of my training class for some of our junior professionals, so keep writing that. But I think another component that we should really spend some time on, and this is really ultimately 90% of our jobs at the Jason level and my level, is meeting exceptional teams and convincing them to working with us. And those teams make a colossal difference, right? I think there's some structural inefficiencies within large companies. Just, they cannot have an anarchic structure when everybody decides to do something without central committees or politburos, whatever you want to call them. But I think, so there is a edge and efficiency that you can capture within small companies in terms of speed, but that has to be, executed by people who know their stuff, right? And I think the good news is there's a lot more of these guys that can execute fast and they're skilled at that than there used to be. The bad news is there's not nearly enough as this industry needs. So our job is really to kind of connect with them, make sure they like us, make sure they go and work with us. And obviously I have the advantage of being Southern Italian and everybody likes Italian food. So there you go.
Right.
Nice.
I'm only from Central New Jersey.